Hi, this is Lindsay, one of the co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Everyone, it is No Filter Friday on Public House Media. We're talking about the active cover-up the Vatican has been keeping up forever. Okay, good to go, I think. Anyway, the Vatican's been doing this forever and ever and ever and ever. And oh, look, Lauren Vale's here, and Alexa Polar's here, and David Bobke. David, how does it sound? Does it sound okay? Because, like, I've really put these headphones through their paces, and they deserve to be retired, but we don't have time for all that. Anyway, before we really get into things, I have a small PSA. I am a ClassPass devotee, and I take mostly Pilates, but I take all kinds of stuff all the time, and I was in a tramp cardio class today. And things got weird because during the recession, all the retail spaces by and large emptied out. People weren't shopping, therefore the people that own those stores couldn't, afford to keep them open, so they're just these empty retail spaces. As the economy has gotten better, those retail spaces are not stores anymore. They're juice bars or, mostly workout places by and large. So I've always been really, because I go to this place all the time, and I was always really impressed because the group class part is basically in the storefront, and then the private stuff and all of the bathrooms and things like that are towards the back of the building. And I've always been so impressed how guys just walk by and they look through their sunglasses. Some of them turn their head, most of the time not, and they just keep it moving. Some of them are, try to be slick and walk back one more time, but that's about it. Today, on the other hand, your ears are happy. Wonderful, David. I love that. So these are not going to get retired. Anyway, so it's just a few of us in this tramp cardio class. It's me, 3 other ladies, and the teacher, so 5 total. And this guy walks past, breaking his neck, and then he leaves, okay, we got a neck break or whatever. And then he comes back, and he's has his face up to the window like this. He couldn't see regularly, he needs more. And then he wanders over to my corner, and he starts banging on the glass. And the lady that teaches this class is the most perfect, because it's a ballet Pilates, fusion, whatever. And they're all the girls that, teach, they're professional dancers. And she's the most perfect, sweetest little bunhead you've ever met in your life. And she's oh my God, I just couldn't. She just didn't know what to do, and she jumped off of her trampoline, and she's keep going. She's pulling the blinds down, and I'm I can't with this dude. Come on. If you're being a creeper to a degree of somebody needs to get up from what they were doing to prevent your creepiness, you have a creepy problem. Don't do that. It's weird. I learned what it's like to be in an aquarium today with little idiot kids tapping on the glass. Oh my goodness. That's exactly what it felt like, but sexual. It was so strange. So if you're a creeper, please stop. Don't do that. It's not a good look. It's really not. With the internet, you don't need to do that. Oh, Lauren's laughing. Thank you for laughing at my pain, Lauren. Like, I get that it's a storefront and it looks like very display, whatever, but it's like, dude, this is Los Angeles. Okay, we pay so much rent for this sunshine. Okay, we're gonna take it in any way, shape, or form that we can. And when we have to close the blinds because you're a creeper, it's bad. It's bad. It's not cute. Don't do that. It's icky. Anyway, so that's my PSA for the day. Don't be a creeper. And if you are a creeper, keep it under the threshold of somebody having to get up from what they're doing to curb your creepiness. You keep it, if you really can't help yourself, just keep it within that threshold. Because it's strange. Okay, on to more grosser stuff. So we have all known for years that members of the clergy have been, groping, molesting, and copulating children. Oh, Lauren, hang on. Lauren has a comment. Hold up. Lauren's comment. Why I hate gyms, LOL. I disappointed high school boys the other day. The high schools shared gyms, and they thought I was a new gym teacher. Oh, goodness. They wouldn't take their eyes off the twins. Lord have mercy. I mean, I feel bad for them, but you know what? I don't know. It's weird. Like, and when you're in your, like, now that I'm in my, like, about to be 30s, like, these little boys will come up to me, like, when I was in Cancun. I wasn't there for spring break, but it was during spring break. And in the club, these, like, little, 18, 19-year-old boys that are all excited about their bottles. Like, oh, come to our table, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sweetheart, I am not trying to be anybody's Mrs. Robinson. There are 7,000 people in here. Just pick one of these poor little chicks out of the general admission. Leave me alone. Do you see this gray hair coming out of my head? It's in there. I've just had it dyed. But it's in there. At the time, it was popping out. Like, no. Absolutely not. I am not about to Mrs. Robinson anybody. Not happening. Not happening. There's so many other trees to bark up. Leave mine alone. Anyway, okay. Hang on, let me pull up the article. I mean, but this one kind of blew the lid off of. Oh, well, I shouldn't even say that because when they did the movie a couple years ago, the Boston Globe movie with Rachel McAdams and everybody, that did really, really well for Oscar season, about them, blowing the lid off of this cover-up coming from as far at the top as the Vatican down through all of the dioceses across the planet, basically, because Catholicism is so widespread, about them, covering up all this abuse. And it's just, it's so appalling, because I get that it's not all of them. It's actually a small percentage. Although they say that it's only 5% of priests that are doing this, I think it's a lot more, because these are just the ones that are being caught, plain and simple. So when you look at it, like the statistics on other sex crimes, like for every, 10 people that were caught, in their sex crime, there are 90 more that did not get caught. So I think, using a algebraic proportion, I would say it's probably closer to 20 to 25% of, members of the clergy that are involved in this craziness. But and again, I understand it sounds a little bit off topic for this show, but I promise it's not because of the cover-up. That's the point of No Filter Friday, is to have no filter, other than I'm not supposed to curse, which is a really hard thing for me to do. But I do it for you. I get myself together on Fridays. I lock it down, I swallow it, and I keep it together. Or at least I try to, every now and then things get heated. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, the cover-up is what comes into me too, because it's something much like Hollywood. Seriously, it is appalling how noisy this neighborhood is. To be like tucked up on the hill in a little tiny crevice. So loud. So loud. I don't know how they got away with the Wonderland murders up here. It's crazy. Anyway, it's about the cover-up. It's about the open secret and the cover-up, which goes along with the rest of this Me Too situation. But if we don't think that my Hollywood comrades are not taking leafs out of the Vatican's cover-up playbook, we're fooling ourselves. So this is from USA Today. There's one of the priests there. Lies and cover-ups. Catholic Church in Pennsylvania had a playbook. I did not even mean to make a parallel there. To keep priest abuse secret, FBI said. This is from Mike Argento, and it came out yesterday night. The Attorney General's reports comes after years of state and local law enforcement uncovering cases of sexual abuse within the Catholic Church. Okay, and again, keep in mind, that's just people that came forward and said something. That is not including a bunch of people that just locked it up and threw away the key. On July 17th, 1990, Father Thomas Smith wrote to his bishop, Donald Tracherman, thanking him for meeting with him and expressing appreciation for the bishop's faith in him and his quest to return to the active ministry. At the time, Smith, who had served at a number of churches in the Erie Diocese in northwestern Pennsylvania, that's like on the Lake Erie side, was on leave, and I've heard it's a nice area, in northwestern Pennsylvania, was on leave of absence, his third such leave since being ordained as a Catholic priest in 1967. And then there is the Attorney General there, Josh Shapiro. I'm trying to get you to be able to see his face. Anyway. Outlined the findings of the grand jury investigation into 6 Catholic dioceses in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, August 14, 2018. The grand jury's report detailed child sexual abuse and cover-up by more than 300 clergy members. Oh, how wonderful. Only 300. His absences were termed in diocese records as health leaves. Oh, goodness. The reality, each of the leaves occurred after the church received reports the Smith had raped children, and the diocese responded. Seriously, don't message me on Facebook when I'm doing this. It's very irritating. The reality, each of the leaves occurred after the church received reports that Smith had raped children, and the diocese responded by sending Smith to a church-run treatment facility, according to this week's Pennsylvania grand jury report on the Catholic child sex scandal. While in treatment, Smith told counselors he had raped 15 boys, some as young as 7, threatening them with violence if they told and invoking the name of God to justify his actions, as most of them do. He first had been treated treated for what? How do you treat pedophilia? Like, come on. And then again in 1986 and 1987, counselors at the treatment facility reported to the diocese that Smith had a driven compulsion and long-standing obsession with sexually assaulting children. I don't think you can treat that out of someone, especially since it's already happened. Like, they need to go to jail or death row, preferably death row. But I'll take jail as a quick substitute. That's what he's into. It seems like the best place for him. Sexually assaulting children. According to the grand jury report, the counselors noted that Smith had continued to rape children even after his first stint in treatment. I wonder why. Why? Because he's a pedophile and he's going to keep hurting kids. What is wrong with these people? The initial impulse is to protect the institution, whether that institution is a church or a university or a football program. Why? Why? You're out here hurting children. I don't care what the... Zeus, shut up! These animals are so rotten. Kristen Hauser, Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. That was her quote. Smith was in treatment again when he met we're going to say treatment like this because that's not really a thing. When he met the Trotman and expressed his desire to return to a parish. I wonder why. And I mean, he's got to keep the supply coming. In a letter previously, he had described his gifts and accomplishments in working with young people. The report noted gifts and accomplishments. Oh my goodness. Trotman wrote in a memo that he was impressed with Smith's candor and sincerity and suggested he would wait another year and a half before considering a new assignment for the priest. In his note to Trotman, Smith expressed relief. So why did I worry, he wrote. Why indeed? Smith returned to the ministry and became active in a program called Isaiah 43. Isaiah 43 is a ministry for Catholic children. No. Yes, why did he worry? The church had his back. Oh my goodness. Smith's tale is not unique. The grand jury report contains numerous stories about priests accused of committing terrible crimes against children, with the church repeatedly protecting them from the consequences of their actions. When an allegation was raised at one church, some priests were transferred to other parishes. In other cases, instead of reporting abuse to law enforcement, the church sent priests for psychiatric treatment at church-run facilities. In yet other cases, the church attempted to discredit victims or blame victims for the crimes committed against them. Of course they did. Of course they did. That's the first move. First classic OG move of a sex crime. Blame the victim. Makes everything for the perpetrator just so much easier. The grand jury found 301 priests who had committed such crimes and more than 1,000 victims, noting that there were certainly more, numbers that raise the question, how did the church keep widespread criminal activity quiet for so many decades? Because they got more money than God. That's why. And they have the resources to do it. And they have incredible records. That's one thing about the Catholic Church that's really interesting, and I just learned this not too long ago, is that they keep records on everyone who has ever been in any church. Like, if you're baptized in a church, you get married in even if you get married, baptized in one church, married in another church, and I don't know, some other situation in some other church, they link all of those together, and all of that information is then sent back to your home church. They have all of that information on you. So, and then on top of it, you're giving confession as part of this religion, so they got all that too. Like, Scientology ripped somebody off, and it was this. Also, if you haven't seen Going Clear, you need to see it. Anyway, keeping the lid on child abuse. If you consider the culture of Roman Catholic Church a culture of secrecy and deception embedded in its history, it's not surprising that it was able to keep a lid on widespread child abuse, said Kristen Hauser, Chief Public Affairs Officer with the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. In that way, what the Catholic Church has done is not that much different than how Penn State responded to charges that former assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky had molested to rape numerous children. The initial impulse is to protect the institution. Both cases have an element of authority. Parishioners have absolute faith and trust in the leadership of the church, just as Penn State football fans had absolute loyalty and trust in Joe Paterno and the university's leadership. But in the case of the church, the men are God's representatives on earth, according to them, not according to God. To question them is to question God. I do vividly remember the Bible saying that, something, just a little small passage, just something about whoever should hurt these little ones that believe in me are better to have a millstone hung around their neck and drowned. That's what God said, not some guy here in front of us. We saw Catholic priests weaponizing their faith, using their faith as a tool of the abuse And all the while, the bishops, the monsignors, the cardinals covered it up, the state attorney general Josh Shapiro said at a news conference. The grand jury report described the church's massive cover-up of these crimes. While each case differed slightly in the details, they all contained similar elements as if there were a script. Of course there is. It's a playbook. They said that in the title. While each church district had its idiosyncrasies, the pattern was pretty much the same. The grand jury reported the main thing was not to help children, but to avoid scandal. That is not our word, but theirs. Playbook for concealment. Again, that word playbook just keeps coming up. The FBI's National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime, the division within the Bureau that provides profiles of violent criminals, among other things, reviewed much of the evidence the grand jury received and concluded that its analysis of the material revealed something akin to a playbook for concealing the truth. First, the church employed euphemisms for sexual assault, referring to the crime not as rape, but as inappropriate contact or boundary issues, center investigators said. They do this a lot, especially when it's like a top-down thing. For example, the sex attacks in Cologne, Germany on New Year's Eve a couple years ago, what really blew the lid off that whole thing was when the memo leaked from Angela Merkel to the mayor of Cologne, who was a woman and the victim of a knife attack herself, saying that the chief of police and all the police in Cologne need to go back through all of their police reports from that night and from anything else and expunge the word rape from all of those police reports. If blame the victim is number one, this is number two. Change the language. In one case, the grand jury reported a priest repeated and violent sexual assaults of children were referred to his difficulties. Oh. Then the church did not conduct genuine investigations, often limiting actions to asking suspected abusers a few questions, accepting what they said as gospel. And if a priest had to be removed from his church, church officials were directed to announce it as sick leave or to, well, they're sick for sure, but that's not sick leave. That's you need to go to jail leave. That's you go into the joint to get locked up leave, not sick leave. Or to not say anything at all. For appearance sake, they were to send the priest for evaluation at a church-run psychiatric facility that more often than not concluded that the offender was not a pedophile and could return to ministering faithful. If you sexually abuse, molest, or rape children in any way, you're a pedophile. It's kind of a pass-fail thing. Basically, like it doesn't need a whole evaluation. It's kind of it's a yes or no, basically. It became known in the community that a priest was a problem. They were to transfer him to another parish where nobody knew he was a child molester. Yay! That happened frequently, the grand jury reported. One priest was transferred from Allentown to New Mexico and West Texas after accusations of abuse came to light. He was later arrested in Briscoe County, Texas for molesting a boy, one of the numerous, they don't play in Texas. They don't care if you got a frock or not. For molesting a boy, one of numerous victims he had found in his new location. Oh, goodness. And finally, church officials were told, don't call the cops. Handle it like a personal matter, in-house agreement. No, that's exactly what you do, is call the police because this person needs to go to jail immediately. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. They need to go to jail. Or my personal preference would be death row, but that's just me. What do I know? The grand jury told several instances in which victims or their parents reported sexual abuse to local police or prosecutors. Few of those cases wound up being prosecuted. In one instance, a police officer wrote a letter to the church suggesting that it do something about a certain priest before violence occurred. And another, Robert Masters from Beaver County District Attorney, wrote a letter to the bishop at Pittsburgh Diocese to report that he would not be investigating accusations against a priest in order to prevent unfavorable publicity. And then when all else fails, lie. In the Smith's case, he did have something to worry about. After the Boston Globe's groundbreaking reports on the abuse scandal were published in 2002, the families of some of Smith's victims sued him and the church, making the accusations that Smith had raped children and that the church helped cover it up, because they did. On March 15, 2002, in response to a query from the press, the bishop said, "We have no priest or deacon or layperson that I know of that has in any way a pedophile background," which was a lie, obviously. In November 2004, responding to public pressure, Trotman wrote to the Vatican to ask that Smith be removed from the priesthood, which the Vatican did in 2006. So this is the guy that was defrocked. Most of these guys that have gotten caught up in this new revelation are dead. They're dead and gone. And this is the defrocked one. I think there's only one guy kind of still standing a little bit. From this report, not in total, but just from this thing that came out of Pennsylvania. The announcement of Smith's removal from the priesthood was simple: dismissed from clerical state on June 10, 2006 by Pope Benedict XVI. It is said nothing else need be noted. Seriously? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so this news broke this week, and it keeps getting worse and worse. I think somebody came out a couple hours ago like, oh, well, he didn't, not all of them were raped. Most of them were just like molested or whatever. It's not rape if there's no penetration. And it's like, are we supposed to believe this nonsense? Like, come on. I get that they want to, keep, the church going and its overall situation, but like, the first thing you do to keep anything, whether it be a business, organization, whatever, to keep it solid is to get rid of the bad apples. Like, statistically speaking, not everybody in, a group of people is going to be like the best person ever. Like, you're going to have some issues with some people. That's just how it works. But don't keep them. Keep them for what? Keep them for why? For why? Like, it is satanic to hurt children. Like, that's the highest form of Satanism. Hurting your own kids. Hurting somebody else's kids, in my opinion, is probably somewhere a close second, Points at a sliding scale, maybe 4 stars out of 5, something like that. Like, it's disgusting. It is so gross. And then to keep sending them around to different places so they get a new crop of kids to hurt. Like, it's crazy. Like, people don't really talk about this, but 1 in 6 boys is molested at some point in, before they reach the age of 18. And it has lasting effects, and by and large, they don't have any help or support or resources. They just shut up and have to live with it, and it's really, really, really horrific. And as a society overall, when you have 1/6, let's just say, I think 1 in 4 for females is a little bit high. So we'll just say they're both 1 in 6. We have a minimum, a conservative estimate of 1/6 of the population walking around with untreated sexual abuse scars. You have a problem overall. That's a lot of people carrying this around, and it's not right. It's absolutely not right. So, with that being said, the cover-up is so gross, but the word playbook is so important, because that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what the rest of these people that are systematically abusing people do. They have a protocol. They have a system that they follow to keep themselves out of trouble and to keep that victim re-victimized and re-abused if they can manage it. Sex crimes from a perpetrator standpoint are like the perfect crime, because the victim doesn't want to talk about it, and the people that in it, if the victim does want to talk about it, the people around them probably don't. So what better crime to commit than when you have a victim that doesn't want to tell on you, and the people that, if they do tell on you, the people around them don't want to support them. Like, what other crime can you commit that you have the same effect? It's really, really perplexing. So, with that being said, thanks for coming on No Filter Friday. Can't stand pedophiles. It's just so gross. And that's part of the reason why I do this show, because Hollywood is rife with pedophilia. You can't swing a cat without hitting at least a couple. They're running around like squirrels around here, and it's so gross and it's so disgusting, and they need to be scourged from this industry in town. Because it's icky, it's gross, it's disgusting. So I will see you all next week on No Filter Friday. God only knows what's gonna break from this Friday and next. I mean, it could be anything. Anything could come out. So I will see you all next week. If you're into the podcast is on Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that stuff, on Public House Media. And there's other good shows on there like Choose to Rise and Coffee with Keith and Katie, and there's a couple new sports shows that are coming up. Public House Media is kind of sports heavy. Like, I'm the dark and dangerous of this network for sure. The dark, dangerous, and kind of weird. Everybody else has nice, fun shows where they talk about fun things and do cutesy stuff. Not me, though. Not me. I'm not that person. So I will see you all next week. If you do go to the podcast, leave it rate it, leave it a review, fun stuff like that. We'll see you later. Bye, 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 bye.